Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Sister-in-law loses it on me for calling my wife beautiful in front of her. After that, revenge on the movie producer. And after that, my son's girlfriend didn't take me seriously, so I kicked her out of my house. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to eat a habanero pepper. Honestly, I'd rather have a ghost pepper, but habaneros will suffice. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Sister-in-law loses it on me for calling my wife beautiful in front of her. I, male 29, am a doctor, and my wife, female 29, is in another high-demand, high-pay field with long hours. I've recently been working more odd hours as opposed to my wife's normal 8-about-6 routine. As such, we have not really seen much of each other for about a week. We're just normally very lovey-dovey, cuddly, and all that kind of stuff. Also, her sister, female 33, has recently divorced from her husband for reasons that are irrelevant in my opinion. Just for context, her sister had an Indian-style arranged marriage, and she does not see the point of love marriages in general. She's taking this quite hard, as in India, where she got her previous marriage from, there's sadly a lot of stigma surrounding women who have divorced, which means if she doesn't find a love marriage, she will likely be alone for the rest of her life, as very few people will want to arrange a marriage with her. I personally think the whole concept of arranged marriages is fine, but a lot of the standards and stigmas surrounding it are quite backwards. So my sister has been staying with me and my wife. We're okay with it, and she's honestly a very nice roommate, always cleaning up after herself, super respectful of our rules in our house. Recently, my wife and I got lucky, and I had my workday end at 5 on Friday, and she came home early. We were pretty excited, and once we were both home, we were together. We decided to watch a movie together for a while, and we were lying on the couch cuddling, sweet-talking to each other a little bit. Her sister came into the room and sat down on the other couch and watched the movie. We weren't really saying anything, to be honest, just stuff like how we missed each other, how it was so painful to be without each other, how we loved each other a lot, that sort of stuff. I was trying to be soft, because the sister looked like she was actually watching the film, but at one point, I just held my wife's face and told her, "You're the most beautiful woman in the world." I didn't notice it at the time, but I believe that was when her sister left the room. Later on in the night, after my wife had gone off to prepare for bed, her sister came out and yelled at me. She basically accused me of cuddling with my wife specifically to mock the fact that she doesn't have a husband anymore, and that I was saying that she wasn't beautiful when I told my wife that she was the most beautiful. I tried to calm her down, but she got more riled up, fixating on comparisons between my wife and her, getting a bit too close to me for my liking, and asking me questions like, "What makes her hotter than me?" She then held out for a hug, crying a bit, but I shook my head because I was a bit concerned how she went from yelling at me to wanting physical comfort. Eventually, she just backed off and said okay, tearfully, and walked away. Am I the jerk for saying this? Should I have just given her a hug? She yelled at you and then went in for a hug? Holy passive-aggressive, Batman. Not the jerk. She's envious and she's projecting. Not only that, I'm concerned that sister-in-law may try to create issues in OP's marriage. The fact that she waited for her sister to leave before trying to seek affection in her husband is telling worrying. Imagine if they did hug, then sister-in-law will tell sister that her husband hugged her and called her beautiful. Sister-in-law needs to go stat. OP, I really hope you told your wife what happened. Even if you aren't specifically hiding it from her, if the sister decides to spin this against you, it will look so much worse if you haven't already told your wife about it in detail. The first person to tell the story is usually the one that gets believed, so don't let the sister be the one your wife finds out from. Not the jerk. The sister's issues are not your issues, and she's making them your issues. You and your wife need to sit down and have a chat with her about boundaries. She's trampling all over yours. Her misery is not your problem. You guys have helped her out, and you're there for her. Now she's becoming a problem. It needs to be nipped in the bud if you want to keep your home feeling like a homely place for you and your wife. That's the priority here. And you should be prioritizing your wife and your marriage over her sister's sadness. Revenge on the movie producer. Please allow me to note well in advance, this story is not mine. In fact, it's a rather popular story in a town I once lived in, Savannah, Georgia, and centers around one homeowner who got royally annoyed with a movie producer. Okay, so first and foremost, when movie producers are looking for places to set a movie that takes place in colonial or even 1800 cities in the US, due to the sheer number of parks, wide roads, and period houses, they will often select Savannah, Georgia. They'll pull all of the Spanish moss out of the trees or trim it back, pour dirt on the roads around the squares, and effectively backdate that part of the city to fit most any place, even up to some having used the area as a setting for places like early Washington, D.C., and even places in Britain or France. Typically, when producers do this, they will pay each homeowner whose house is used in the background a couple $1,000s for the licensing to do so. That will be important later, trust me. They have some rules, like no electric lights being visible, not coming out of any door that faces the street, and you have to move your automobiles away from the drive, if you have a drive. Well, 1979, a producer came from Hollywood with the intention of using Savannah for that very purpose. Specifically, the producer was from one of the big 3-letter TV channels and was working on making a made-for-TV movie, talking about the events after the assassination of Lincoln and the subsequent accusations of the doctor present at his death. The production went to the city to seek permission and then sent an announcement out to each of the homeowners, telling them of the various days that the shoot was going to take place. However, much to their downfall, they also noted that the production company would not be compensating the homeowners for the use of their homes as backdrops. This was met with some great annoyance by the homeowners, who turned to the city for help, only to be told that it was their civic duty to allow the use of their homes. Most everyone agreed to this and bit their lips. One homeowner, however, didn't. He decided to get revenge on the production, attempting to mess up their shooting every chance he got. He first started by leaving his car out in front of his house, only to have it towed before filming started. He threatened legal action against the studio, but that fell on deaf ears. He forbade the use of his home in some of the shots, but the production company got the city to make him back down. Eventually, enough was enough. So he waited, biding his time until he was certain they were filming. When the day came that his house was being used as a background shot, the homeowner grabbed a massive German flag from World War II and hung it out front of the house, out one of the tops of the windows. The production company balked. They knew that this ruined any shot they had used there, and what's more, they started to question just when he had put the flag up. Was it just the one day, or had all the previous shots, some which showed the house from across the square, been ruined as well? They turned to the city for help, and the city just basically shrugged, saying that it was his First Amendment right to do that, and implied that had the production company paid the homeowners, as had always been done before, then this probably wouldn't have happened. In the end, the production company had to end shooting and go to the homeowner, begging him to remove the offending flag. He did eventually do so, but only after his lawyer got a contract in writing that required the production company to pay all of the homeowners for having their homes in the shot. The flag came down and shooting wrapped up in less than a day. That stunt cost a producer quite a substantial amount of money and pushed production back at least a year while they tried to find every single instance that the flag flew in the background shots. My son's girlfriend didn't take me seriously, so I kicked her out of my house. My son, 19 male, still lives at home with me, 40 female. He's been with his girlfriend, who's 18, for about 3 years now, and he asked about her moving in with us. I eventually said yes, and she's now lived with us for around 8 to 9 months. For context, we live in a pretty big house with 2 kitchens, 2 bathrooms, and 4 bedrooms. There's an upstairs area where I sleep and have my own kitchen and the master bathroom. Downstairs, they have their own space and only need to come up to my area for showers. There are no issues with space, and I still have my privacy, so I didn't see much of a problem. But since she's moved in, I felt taken advantage of. She has no job and lost the one she did have almost immediately after moving in. She used to work full-time, but quit. When she first started living with me, she paid $80 a month rent fee, mostly to help with utilities, and her and my son bought their own food. But now that she's lost her job, they're eating a lot of my food that I buy for myself, and I'm only getting about $30 a month from my son who works part-time. So I'm left paying for almost all of their food, water, heat, etc. I was fine with this for a little while between jobs, but it's gone on for 8 months now, and I don't even think she's applying anymore. They're also very loud and inconsiderate. I sleep early, it's how I am, like 8 or 9 p.m. I like to wake up a couple hours before work and enjoy the morning, and my son was always super quiet and respectful until she moved in. Now they'll talk loudly until 12 to 3 a.m. and play music all throughout the day. I've even heard them doing other things at night that I'd really rather not. I've been unable to fall asleep until midnight on most nights. I work at 8:30, so now I'm either rushing to get out the door or losing sleep. I've told them to keep it down so many times, but I feel like a nag because they don't listen and always just say, "We are," or "Yeah, wait a sec," etc. They're completely dismissive of my needs or my sleep schedule. They just don't care. Her attitude has annoyed me because she seems to not take me seriously. I've heard her call me names behind my back multiple times. Well, a month ago, I gave her an ultimatum. I told her that if she didn't get a job and they didn't keep the noise down, then she'd have to leave. She had until the end of the month, January. Obviously, January is over now, and I stuck to my word. I kicked her out on February 12th, and she moved back in with her sister today, where she lived before moving here. My son is so mad at me. He said I'm heartless and need to give her a chance, then basically stormed in his room and hasn't spoken to me since. I've tried texting him and explaining my side, but I'm left on red. I don't want to ruin the relationship I have with my son, but the noise, disrespect, lack of job or trying, eating my food, money it costs me, it all adds up. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You did give her a chance. You told her unless she gets a job and keeps the noise down, she was out. That was the chance. Your son wanted you to give her endless chances with no consequences. Your son is being unfair. If they want to live together, they can get jobs and find their own place, like the rest of us. Not the jerk. It's your house. They need to follow your rules. In my opinion, you should have kicked your son out too, but it's your life. Good for you for sticking to your word. I'm sure it wasn't easy. You have allowed both of them to disrespect you for too long. You should have been very firm and negotiated boundaries and implemented them immediately. They felt that you were a pushover and could be manipulated. Best to learn from this and make sure you define and enforce boundaries with your son. This will ensure that you get respect in the long run. Not doing this would make you a jerk to yourself. Not the jerk for now. Boyfriend expects me to cancel plans just because of his diagnosis. I, 25 female, work in event planning, so I always get invites or tickets to go to high-end events. There was a huge event coming up that I was really excited to go to. I asked my boyfriend, who's 27, 3 days before the event to accompany me, and he said yes. So originally, the plan was for my boyfriend, my stepsister, and myself to go. On the day of the event, he said he had a doctor's appointment, so he wasn't sure if he could still attend. I said no problem, and I waited for him to return home. A couple hours later, he texted me and said he has something to tell me. I got worried and called him immediately. I asked if everything was okay, and he said he was diagnosed with anemia, so he'll have to take supplements. I expressed how sorry I was, and I spoke to him for about 2 hours, gave him pep talks, and told him I'm here if he needs me, reassured him that I will always love him, etc. I then asked if he would still like to attend the event with me to take his mind off of things, to which he responded that he doesn't like the artist performing, so he'd rather go to another event. I said no problem, I'll go with my stepsister alone. He got upset and hung up. I called him back, but he started an argument about how I'm selfish for going out while he's going through something. I told him that I already made the plans with my stepsister, and I can't just back out now as she's depending on me. I also don't drink, so I would have been the sober driver, and if I didn't go, then she couldn't. I told him that this event is the only event my sister really wanted to attend, and I promised her that I would take her months prior. I even told him I'll see him the next day, and he said be safe and hung up. I got to the event around 11 and spent the entire event alone, just sitting down and watching the show by myself, having food and drinks. When I returned home around 2 a.m., I called him, and he was awake playing video games. His first words were, "Look who cares about me again." I said, "I'm too old for this." And he responded by saying that of course I'm tired. I went out without him knowing that he's upset, but I love partying and meeting new people so much that I didn't think to stay with him on the phone. I told him he's being ridiculous, and I would have stayed if it were just us who had planned to go. He said my priorities are off, and I'm an ignorant jerk. Keep in mind, I don't attend parties unless it's with my family, and I only attend events a few times a year. So, am I the jerk for not staying on the phone with him and attending the event instead? When I read the title, I expected it to be cancer or some kind of degenerative disorder or something requiring major surgery. Anemia is generally a completely treatable condition that has no impact on quality of life, and unless the doctor referenced a concern about a more serious condition, it's reasonable to assume that supplements are all that is needed at this point. It sounds more like he's using it as an excuse to get out of something he didn't want to do, then taking it a step further to try to manipulate you. Not the jerk. When my doctor told me to take iron pills and vitamins, I was like, okay. And I told my husband, and he was like, okay. And then I got some iron pills and vitamins and took them, and everything was okay. Info. What did you talk about for 2 hours? OP. He basically cried and told me I need to make a decision on if I want to be with someone who isn't healthy and if I can see myself with him, having a family, etc. I told him I don't have any decision to make because I already made it years ago, and I chose to be with him. The call lasted 2 hours because every time I reassured him, he said something to make the situation more depressing. I love you and I want to be with you despite your diagnosis. You'd be better off with a healthy guy. I'm sure you have guy friends who want you and are healthier than I am. That's not true, and even if it was, I only want you. I'm literally dying. Stuff like that. Maybe he needs a psychological checkup too. Seems like he wants to be babied. Would I be the jerk if I told my daughter's former partner that she's pregnant with his baby? My 20-year-old daughter is currently 34 weeks pregnant. I've never met the baby's father, but he's in his late 20s and already has 2 other sons. My daughter told me that she was pregnant during Thanksgiving weekend when she came home from her freshman year of college. She later admitted about who the father was and how she had met him. In her senior year of high school, she started a new part-time job that she loved and became close to the older girls that worked there. She ended up deferring her college enrollment for a year, spending half the time working and the other half traveling. The older girls got her a fake ID and they started taking her to bars. They specifically frequently went to a bar in a neighboring town. This is where my daughter met her baby's father as he worked there and was a regular even when not working. They became friendly, and after knowing him for a few weeks, he asked her to go home with him. Then they started meeting up frequently until she left for college, when she cut him off completely, including deleting his number. Although my daughter was only 18 when she met him, she told him that she was 21, and now he thinks she's 23. He still has no idea her real age. My daughter has so far not told him that she's pregnant. She can't call him as she deleted his number, and she can't contact him online as he has no social media. The only way to contact him would be to go see him in person, either at his home or at the bar. She's scared to tell him as she doesn't think he will be happy about the baby. She's also nervous about the fact that she will have to come clean about her real age and some other stuff she apparently lied to him about. Both myself and my husband have been trying to pressure her into telling the baby's father, as the baby is due in a few weeks and could come at any time. I think she should have told him months ago, and it's unfair that she's only left him a few weeks to mentally prepare. She keeps flip-flopping between saying she'll tell him soon to maybe she won't be telling him at all. At this point, I'm ready to go to the bar to either find him or someone who can give me his number so I can just tell him myself. The last few months have been stressful for everyone in our family, and I know my daughter is going through a lot, but burying her head in the sand about the baby's father is not helping her, and it won't help the baby. I've told her if she doesn't get in contact with him by the end of the week, I will be. I know she will be incredibly mad at me if I do, but I feel like she's leaving me no choice. Would I be the jerk if I go through with it? Am I interfering too much? Should I just leave it up to her? Edit. My husband and I are currently financially supporting and hope to continue supporting her with college. We would like for her to be able to get child support so it's less of a financial burden on us, as well as for her to have more help with the baby when she does decide to return to college. Has it occurred to you that there might be a very good reason she cut him off that she hasn't specifically told you about? You could be endangering her if you go off and find this guy. Even if that weren't the case, it's not your right to share this without her permission. You would be the jerk. You would be the jerk. I get that you're trying to come from a good place, but you don't know this person. You don't know the full context on why she's choosing to not tell him, and you don't know if he will even react well to the idea of it. Separately, it seems like the only reason you're doing this is financially motivated for you and your husband. Give your daughter the space to be able to share at her own time the news instead of you doing it. Also, I don't buy she can't get a hold of him. She can totally look at her previous phone bills. There's something more going on that she's not telling you, and it's none of your business unless she feels comfortable to disclose. Not the jerk. I may be in the minority, but I think morally everyone has the right to know if they're having a kid. Your daughter is being incredibly immature by not telling him. Additionally, her relationship with this guy happened under false pretenses. However, I think you should learn more about this guy as well. You know he has 2 sons, but do you know how he treats them? Additionally, how long are you planning on financially supporting your daughter after she gives birth? OP. We hope to be able to financially support her until she's back on her own feet. We've also made all the money we previously set aside for college available to her so that she can use it however she needs to. We want her to continue with college, and she wants to continue as well, so we will help her make that a reality if that continues to be what she wants. She's told us a little about this guy. Obviously, she never met his kids, but knew that he had custody of them 3 days a week and that he was involved in their lives. Apparently, he coaches his oldest son's soccer team. She said that he told her that he didn't want any more kids, hence why she thinks he would be unhappy to learn about her pregnancy. Well, what do you think? Would OP be the jerk for getting in touch with him and telling him about this, or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my dad and stepmom they will not be invited to birthdays for their first grandkids? I, 32 female, grew up with very young parents who divorced when I was 10. Neither parent handled the divorce well, and they refused to be in the same room as one another. As a result, I grew up having separate holidays, birthdays, etc. with each parent. My mom had primary custody, so I spent the majority of my childhood and adolescence with her. I've never had a close relationship with my stepmom. I don't even talk to her outside of major gatherings, and I see her maybe 4 to 5 times a year. My mom and my dad and stepmom live 5 minutes from each other, so distance isn't a factor. My husband, who's also 32, and I got married last year. It was the first major event that everyone had to attend and play nice at. My mom and dad both promised me that it was my day and they had no issues being around each other for it. They even offered to do a combined speech. I invited my stepmom and stepsister to get ready with the girls, and my stepmom told me that she would be uncomfortable getting ready in a room with my mom, so I assumed that they didn't want to attend this portion. Stepmom then said that she would be highly offended if I took a photo with my biological family, parents and brothers, because she's my dad's wife. My mom isn't. After this conversation, I had major anxiety because it was clear she was struggling with insecurities and I was trying to make everyone happy. I okayed everything with stepmom, the parents of the bride speech, the slideshow containing childhood photos with both parents. I even had stepmom and my mom sitting at separate tables, facing away from each other. I put in every effort possible to have a drama-free day and make everyone comfortable. After the wedding, stepmom told me that I should have done more to include her. I told her about all the effort I put in to make her comfortable on my day. She said my efforts weren't good enough and I should have treated her equally to my mom. She was offended that all the girls got ready together and stepmom and stepsister weren't invited. I reminded her that I did invite them, and she told me she wasn't comfortable being around my mom. We had a huge fight, and stepmom kept bringing up the past and bad-mouthing my mom. I asked if they could respect my boundaries and leave me out of any drama they had with my mom. Stepmom threw it back in my face because now she can't express her feelings to me. My husband and I ended up kicking them out of our house after boundaries were ignored. Now, we are 7 months pregnant with twins, the first grandbabies, and they've been excluded from all celebrations, gender reveal, baby shower, etc. It's been made clear that stepmom doesn't want to be around mom, and I'm not going to go out of my way to accommodate her after the wedding fiasco. My dad has made it clear that he won't attend any events without stepmom, so he's been excluded by default. I told my dad that if they want to be part of the grandkids' lives, then we can do separate celebrations, but mom will be attending the big celebrations as she is much more integrated into my life. Am I the jerk for telling my dad he won't be invited to major events? Not the jerk. Your stepmom is playing games. Your dad is a jerk for allowing this behavior, and your stepmom is a major jerk. Rude delivery driver wants a review. We'll give him one. Several years ago, I worked at B-Dubs, a popular wing restaurant. It's on campus, so it's crazy during football season. I was a hostess, so a big part of my job was inputting and handing out online orders to customers and delivery drivers. Part of our online order procedure was we needed the customer or delivery driver to sign the receipt for their order to confirm it was picked up. A lot of the drivers would sign and write something like, "Please review," or 5 stars next to their signature. We had an ability in our system to go back through orders and review the driver, but we were usually too busy to do so. We saw a lot of the same guys pretty regularly because it's a large campus right near the city. Most of them understood that if the order was just put in, It could take anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes for it to be ready. Wings need 12 minutes to cook. Plus if there was anything to put on them, plus how busy we were. But this one dude, despite being here a lot, was just an absolute jerk. We hostesses are not cooks and have no control over how fast things get done. He knew this. We told him as much every single time he was in, but he would still stand right at the counter, pace back and forth, huff and puff, and make snide comments at us while waiting for his order. Eventually it would come up and he'd snatch it out of our hands and storm out. The last straw was when he snapped at the new girl and made her cry. I was livid, but there was nothing I could do. After he left, it got slow for a while. I was organizing delivery receipts when I realized how I could get back at him. Like I said, he was a regular and was also one of the guys that would always write, "Please review," on their receipts. The receipts list the driver's name on them. After finding his name on the receipt, I went through our online order tablet and found every single order as far back as it went and gave this jerk a 1-star review on every single order he ever picked up from us. You want a review? I'll give you a review. For those that haven't done delivery, your driver rating is based on an average from all of the customers who rate you. A single 1-star rating can take you from a 4.9, my average, to a 4.7 to 4.8 if you don't have a lot of runs under your belt. I don't know about other apps, but I know the one I worked for required you to have your rating at a certain average to be allowed to continue driving, like no lower than a 4.3 or something. Several 1-star ratings would absolutely devastate someone's rating. Also, review bombing the driver has no impact on the customer. A couple days later, he's back to pick up an order. Suddenly, he's now the kindest, politest, most patient delivery driver we've ever had. Strange. Wonder what gave him a change of heart. This time, when he signed his receipt, he wrote, "5 stars, please, smiley." Am I the jerk for yelling at my brother, asking him to have some empathy towards me? My life hasn't been going that great recently. I left my husband 2 months ago, and I've been miserable since. I left him because I had a crush on another man, and that made me question our entire relationship and myself too. I started dating my husband when I was 17, and I fell in love with his kindness. He was my first boyfriend ever, and he showed me care that I had never received from a man before. Long story short, I've left him after almost 10 years of being together because I started questioning why I've fallen in love with him. I had a horrible father growing up, and I never went to therapy and never tried to process that. I just tucked it away and got married to a man who was the complete opposite of him and a people pleaser. Upon leaving my husband, I moved back in with my mother. My father has since passed, and my little brother lives here too, and now I hate my life and I miss my husband terribly. I have to commute 3 hours a day to work, and my mother and brother are much more difficult roommates than my husband was. My brother especially is frustrated by my presence and constantly picks fights with me. Yesterday, he was yelling at me through the door about taking too long in the bathroom, and I told him to calm down and don't be such a jerk. He asked, when will I finally move out, because I'm always in the way, and told me I was an idiot for leaving my husband and I should go and beg him to take me back, but he probably won't because I'm impossible to live with. I snapped and I yelled at him, asking him to have some empathy for me. I'm going through a hard time and I really don't need him to be such a jerk to me. He replied that it's not his problem. I created this situation for myself, and it's not fair that he has to suffer the consequences of my actions too, and I don't deserve his empathy. He's right that it is my fault. I created this situation. I only have myself to blame. Am I the jerk for yelling at him? Edit for info. My brother is 22, and his problem is basically just me being here. Not that I'm messy or loud, just that I'm present. He likes to send our mother away for the night to her boyfriend when he wants to have company over, and it really bothers him that he can't really send me away like that. Also, I didn't leave my husband for the other guy. I stopped talking to that man as soon as I realized I had a crush. Not the jerk. It sounds like your brother might have taken a few pages out of your father's book, and they ain't pretty. Everyone has huge introspective moments in their marriage at some point. Figure yourself out. Do you want to go back to your husband? It might be too late, but maybe not. Make up your mind where you want to go from here, even if it's in baby steps, like getting an apartment to get away from Toxic Jr. Not the jerk. Sounds like your brother is a chip off the old block. He's not going to change. He cares nothing about you and everything about his routine being changed. He has no more empathy than your father did. You made a bad decision and you're living with the result. All you can do now is move forward and find your own place closer to work. I also recommend talking with your ex, if that's an option. not in the hopes of reconciliation, but with the idea of full disclosure and apologizing to him for ending things like you did. You need to experience living on your own and knowing you're capable of doing so before getting into any other relationship. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her brother? Please let us know. Karen Waitress threw away my food when I wasn't looking, so I left her no tip. My girlfriend and I recently went out for dinner. It took them a while to seat us as they were short-staffed. We ordered an appetizer to split as well as a meal each. I noticed that they were really trying to rush us along, bringing out our meals at the same time as the appetizer. The server kept grabbing things off the table, asking, "All finished with this?" and beginning to walk away with it in her hand before I stopped her and told her that we weren't finished. After the third time, first the bread, then my half-filled beer, and then the appetizer, I had enough. I understand you have a job to do. Please do not touch anything in front of me until it's cleared and off to the side. Stop interrupting our meal. Please go away, I said very sternly. A friend of mine came in and was seated at a table nearby. I turned around to greet him and engaged in chit-chat for about 2 minutes. When I turned around, my meal, which I had barely touched, was gone. My girlfriend hadn't even noticed it gone missing. I called the waitress over, who handed me the check and asked, "Will there be anything else?" I told her my meal had disappeared. She blankly replied, "Oh, I thought you were done." I said, "No, I'm still eating. Go get my dinner and bring it back here." She replied, It got thrown out. Because you looked like you were done, so yeah." I told her to go get me her manager. She responded that he didn't have time to see me. I told her that he needed to make time because I was about to make a scene in 4 seconds. She left and a minute later came back and said that he was too busy. I told her to reprint the check without my meal on it. She refused, saying I had ordered it, I had to pay for it, and walked away. I let my girlfriend finish her meal, took the check, put a line through the cost of my meal, pulled cash out of my wallet to cover the appetizer, drinks, and my girlfriend's meal, wrote, "No tip. Your server was rude, incompetent, and threw out my dinner," and handed it to the cashier as one bundle as I walked out. My girlfriend thinks I went a bit overboard and that I should have at least tipped for the other employees involved. My mother, a retired waitress, is furious that I took it upon myself to alter a check and leave without paying for food I ordered. She thinks it was an honest mistake and I need to be more understanding. I'm usually on the side of the servers, but this seems a bit much. Who takes someone's food without even asking if they want to box it up, especially if there was a lot left over? Not the jerk. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.